power can an NA Barra, that some hack like me has thrown some bolt-on parts at, make on the dyno? Is it even worth tuning your NA car? And if so, is this a good bang for buck mod? We're hoping to answer all those questions today. That is, of course, as long as this car survives its time on the dyno. Hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Browney's Garage, and an exciting day as we're heading out to Maxx Performance to tune this car. In this video, I'll be sure to detail exactly how much they cost and do my best to give you not only the power figures and the dyno figures and what we pick up there, but I'll also be trying to put the good old butt dyno to the test to try and give you an idea of how I feel this improves in the real world. For those of you not familiar with this car or who haven't been following the series, this is my 2004 BA XR6 Falcon that we picked up pretty cheap a few years ago. Mechanically, it is in pretty good condition with fairly low Ks on its NA Barra, but it did unfortunately come with the 4-speed /box auto. Not all bad though, that box can put up with a little bit of abuse. When we first started this performance series, this car was pretty well stock except for lowered suspension. The aim of this series has always been to upgrade the car bit by bit and enjoy it as we go, and do mods that pretty well any well hack can do in their own backyard without any specialist tools or knowledge or having to be a professional mechanic themselves. We started off with a basic airbox and pod filter upgrade, as well as some slightly larger intake piping from a Territory of all things. We then moved on to a must-have upgrade for almost all cars with an upgraded exhaust system. The system is made up of pacemaker 4490 extractors, a high flow cat and a 2.5 inch exhaust. While this system is still a 2 muffler setup, they're both straight through and so should provide very little restriction while keeping the car still nice and quiet when cruising. Next up we had something a little less common, but an upgrade I've been really impressed with, an underdrive pulley kit. The kit we used is from Powerbond and is promoted as being a 20% underdrive kit, with the aim being to reduce the amount of power being robbed by turning your accessories. Things like your alternator, your water pump and power steering. That should be good for a little power, but I was really surprised with how much throttle response the car picked up with just this. Makes it much more fun playing in some twisty stuff. Of course, I couldn't have that power being wasted going through just one tyre, and I really didn't want to go back to the drag strips before doing an LSD upgrade. Not a power upgrade, but it does make the car a lot more fun, and by using the complete assembly from a turbo model, we've also got a much stronger centre and axles now. And finally, we did something to firm and quicken up those shifts by installing an electronic shift kit from Shift Kits Australia. The factory shifts on these cars can be tuned as well, so they may be touched a little today anyway, but we did this one for a few reasons. I wanted to keep with the DIY options as much as I could, and this can easily be done at home. But also with the ability to turn it on and off via a switch, it allows the shifts to be even firmer than you would normally want to run day to day, even if you could tune them to this level. We've topped all this off by going through the car and making sure it's well serviced and ready for that abuse on the dyno, and of course for its new tune. That brings us to today and dyno day. Unfortunately, we won't be doing this at home. It's still a little bit out of reach for most backyarders to have their own dyno. Sure, my neighbours are very glad of this, mind you. And besides, I don't have nearly enough tuning knowledge to do that, just yet at least. Maybe we'll work to that one day. With that in mind, there may be a few of you out there who aren't overly familiar with what a dyno even is, so while I'm driving out there, let's run through that and have a chat about what we're hoping to achieve today and how we hope to do it. A chassis dyno is a tool that's used to gather data. It can control the resistance of its rollers, which the wheels of the car turn, to simulate all sorts of driving loads and speeds while the car remains stationary. Power and torque readings can then be measured to help dial in small, more precise changes in a safer environment than you would have by trying to do similar on the street. While a lot of people like to rely on these dyno results to brag about their wangs over the internet, these figures can be a little imperfect to compare, or can even be deliberately manipulated somewhat. A huge number of factors can see a big difference in final power figures even with the same car, such as weather conditions, the make or style of dyno, gearing changes, how the runs are carried out, and even how the car is strapped down. Data from the dyno is then used to make changes to the car's tune via a laptop and software. Some factory ECUs, especially earlier ones, don't support tuning and require aftermarket computers for this. All the Barra guys out there though are lucky to have a fairly good ECU from stock with several tuning options. Ours today will be tuned using software by PCM Tech, the capabilities of which are huge, with the ability to set multiple tunes that can be changed on the fly, launch control, two-step, transmission control, and a heap of other advanced options. Our tune, however, will be much simpler. The most common adjustments made when tuning any car are to fueling and ignition timing, which is what will largely be targeted today. From the factory, nearly all cars have a certain level of untapped power because the manufacturers have to build a product with programming that will work in a huge range of environments, conditions and variables in not only one specific car but thousands. There is always a level of compromise or tolerance built in to allow for these. This untapped potential is further opened up with suitable modifications as we have. By tuning for our specific car and setup, we can optimise the car's performance and efficiency. So, it's possible to not only increase power but also improve fuel economy, when you're not abusing that extra power at least. That's enough talking, we're here at Maxx Performance, so let's get to the good part. With restrictions still in place at the time of filming, we're leaving the camera with them to film what they can, so cheers to the guys for doing that. On this particular dyno, a good figure for a completely stock BA like this would be around 140 rear wheel kilowatts, give or take. After setting up and making sure everything is to correct temp, we're ready to run our first baseline run before any tuning. Let's see what we've picked up with our mods so far. So that's our first run before any tuning at all, and we've got 153.6 kilowatts at the rear wheels. Now, it's worth noting that 4-speed auto, the BTR, is robbing us of a heap of power. The guys at Maxx Performance tell me that even stock, you're probably about 15 kilowatts better off, somewhere around there, with the manual or even the later ZF auto. For those out there with later model Falcons, there's other benefits as well. From BF onwards, there was slightly higher compression, so that will respond to tuning a little bit better. And again, from FG onwards, there was that better intake manifold, which will give you slightly better results again. So this is probably at the lower end of what you can expect with those mods. Still, not a terrible peak gain of around 15 kilowatts so far, with some fairly basic mods with that intake, exhaust, and the underdrive pulley set. And all of those should hopefully help support the next part as the work begins on the laptop to dial in the tune. A heap of adjustments and dyno runs are carried out to make sure we're heading in the right direction, and then it was finally time for our final power run. Final figure is in, and we've managed 172.6 kilowatts at the rear wheels. So with the tune alone, we've picked up nearly 20 kilowatts, or around a 12% gain right up top, and improvements through the whole rev range. That's some damn good gains. And the other figure that may not be as obvious on the graph because the scale is set quite high there on the right is that torque figure. It's picked up 50 Newton meters of torque and carries that gain fairly consistently through the rev range. Again, that's about a 12% gain. Those are gains that you should definitely notice. So, before I give my final impressions of how it drives now, I'm sure a lot of you out there are keen to hear just how much that tune today actually cost. Well, Maxx Performance seems to be about the mid-range in the price on these sort of things. There are definitely shops that'll do it a little bit cheaper, and there's a few that'll do it a little bit more expensive, probably around the $1,200 or $1,300 mark for similar to what we had done today. At the time of recording, including the transmission tune as well, so that was all done while we were there today, that tune set us back $950. I know that's a decent amount of money, and it's a lot of money to some people, including me, but consider this. That exhaust system we put on this car come in at a similar price. And while hopefully your car also sounds better from that, we didn't get nearly the power gains we did with just the tune on this car. Also consider that if you ever need a retune, say because you're planning to go turbo in the future, then that will actually be much less the next time. A lot of that price initially is for the credits for the tuning software, and they're attached to that individual car. Once you've paid for that, you're good to go. So the next time, when there is a next time and we go back and get it tuned again, that'll only be $350 for that retune. And with a good safe tune in the car now, there should really be no big downsides to it other than that initial cost. Your drivability will be the same, if not better. Our fuel economy seems to have picked up a little bit, so that's a bonus. You'll have no rattles or squeaks or poor fitment that you can sometimes get with aftermarket parts when you're trying to gain power. And we haven't had to roll around on the floor underneath the car all day to get those gains. The only other downside that I can see really is that I'll have to run the car on 98 octane from now on. But otherwise, the car's much the same as it was before, only more betterer. Or at least it should be. Let's throw to me out for a drive, testing that out to see, are those gains noticeable out on the street in the real world?
Oh yeah, it's noticeable. I'm not going to make out like it's a turbo car, because it still isn't, but you can definitely have some fun in this. It's still a little bit sluggish from the launch, but that's all to do with the low stall speed in these cars and the long first gear thanks to that 4-speed auto. Otherwise, once you get up and going, you can definitely notice a difference. That mid to top range has definitely picked up some, which you'd expect looking at the graph, but I can confirm you definitely feel it in the car. It is a little more responsive on the pedal, and you can tell it's happier to rev out again with that just a little bit of that flat spot right up the top there where it runs out of steam still. Now, whilst I'm sure you all trust my butt dyno at this stage, I'll be sure to put a quick 0 to 100 clip in here so you can all get a bit of a better feel for how this thing's going now.
So the final verdict, is it worthwhile tuning your NA car? Well, if you're keeping the car for a while and you want to stay NA but you want a little bit more power, then I'd definitely say it's worthwhile. The car feels great now. And if you're going to be doing a little bit of driving, that increased fuel economy should offset the cost of the 98 fuel a little bit, so you won't feel that quite as much as you might think you would. But of course, I'm sure there's still some of you out there who want to get a better idea of what gains we've made, and so do I. Good news. It looks like we're going to have a chance to get out to Heathcote Park Raceway, where this series all started, before they close for some major upgrades, so we can get a really good idea of just how far this car's come. Make sure you get your guesses down below in the comments for how quick you think we can make this car go now down the quarter mile. That should be the next video coming. I'm just packing and getting everything ready. So, if you'd like to support the channel or make sure you don't miss that next one, please consider subscribing. And if you've enjoyed this video, again, consider liking and sharing it with a mate. It's free and every little bit helps us keep this channel going. So, until then, I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, guys.